This is episode 107 of the Rise Up podcast. We're a morning radio show hosted by Steve and Tim on Family Life, a network of stations across New York and Pennsylvania. This podcast is a weekly conversation designed to help you think and laugh and keep your eyes on Jesus. If you haven't already, subscribe today so you don't miss a single episode. And find out more about our show at familylife.org.
Today is the day the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it. This is Rise Up on Family Life.
It was the perfect evening. Or maybe very much not. We're talking, Steve, do you have any dates you want to recount? Maybe the date's gone wrong, because they're not all the perfect evening.
Two things come to mind, two instances. One, I would consider like that's awful. And the second one is still, to this day, somewhat of a mystery. It's an interesting date story, yet still somewhat of a mystery, and I think you'll find it interesting. Let me start with my first one, which was the and unfortunately, it was with my wife. And here, it had nothing to do with my wife. It was just, she happened to be. We had a very special time. This was years ago, and we're going to get dressed up and go out for a very nice date for a very special time at a very special restaurant. So I get my suit coat, a sport coat on, whatever, and I'm all dressed up and everything. And we park, and we're looking forward to a beautiful evening. And it was a spring day, just perfect weather and very comfortable. And we're walking from the parking lot to this very nice hotel that had a very nice restaurant inside. And we're still outside, and we go under a whole bunch of trees. There was a whole bunch of beautiful trees lined by the sidewalk. And we're walking, we're maybe 10, 15 yards from the front door. And all of a sudden, I hear a bunch of birds flying by and a bunch of tweets. And all of a sudden, I heard a sound, which I don't even know what I'm not going to make the sound. And all of a sudden, I look down, and on my beautiful sport coat, a bird had decided to do what birds do. But this one was splatted all over my sport coat.
Oh, no.
So when you say, dates gone wrong or bad dates, it was a date with my wife. And I likely didn't wear the sport coat that night, took it off and had to have it cleaned. But that's comes to mind when you say bad dates. It's just like certain things could ruin it, and that kind of, I guess we still had a good time, but that's for some reason stands out as what I remember about that night.
Well, I wonder why. Forgive me if you already said this. You married already at this point?
Yes, we were already married.
I don't know if it was like, yes, it's with Audrey, but maybe it was from before you.
No, we're already married, and it was one of those romantic, like, I'm going to take my wife out. We're going to have a beautiful evening, and that kind of thing. And then,
that's perfectly bad.
Yeah, but yeah.
But here's my other thought and question about that. Were you in the moment able to see any of the humor in it?
We did laugh quite a bit. So it did cause some pretty good conversation. What's interesting about it, now that I think about it, and I'm not making this part up, a bird did that on the name of the place was the Warren Duck Club. So it did have maybe it was warning me. Maybe the birds were saying, "Look out, here they come." But anyway, maybe
from one bird to another.
From one bird to another.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
So Valentine's Day is coming up, and I've got a friend who, he and we were in college, both of us as sophomores, and we were both going to take our girlfriends at the time on our first Valentine's dates. Not just our first Valentine's dates with them, but like our first Valentine's dates at all. So it's kind of like, they feel like there's a lot of pressure on this thing. Maybe it's a little different, Steve, when it's a Valentine's date with your wife, because not that you should ever leave the mentality of wanting to do the best for the person that you're with, even when you're married to them, but it feels like there's more pressure when you're dating. Like, we make it kind of a performance type thing. How good is it going to be, this date? Well, so both of us have these big plans. Pretty sure they're very outdoorsy. They're going to like go skiing or something. My wife and I, simple enough, should be going to eat some delicious Italian food. We're going to get a cute stuffed animal at the build your own bear workshop thing. We're like, this is going to be adorable, and she's going to love it. These are her favorite things I've planned out together. Well, nobody's favorite thing is being stuck in like basically blizzard weather. On the highway. I don't know that I've ever been driving on a highway in such bad weather as this. Maybe the only time I've ever seen a car in the middle of the highway, not on the side, left or right, smack dab in the middle of the highway, in the middle of a city with its emergency flashers on. We're in traffic for I felt like hours, plural. Man, things did not get better after that. Dinner was, Then we get to the build your own workshop bear thing.
Right.
And we look at it and we're like, it's closed. It's closed after all this. They were just almost closed. We snuck in, we got our little Build-A-Bear out of it. If there's a happy face I can put on this today, there's actually two, but I'll tell you one of them right now. The happy face I can put on this is that Build-A-Bear that we got then, it kind of got forgotten after a while, but now our little daughter loves that little bear.
Same one?
The same bear that was from that date that went wrong in so many ways, but it's like, hey, if we had known at that moment, where it was going to go someday, that would have changed everything about it for us.
That was a Romans 8:28 date right there.
You really could say that.
God works all things together.
Yeah, there's a way you can look at it like that.
The little Build-A-Bear
I think there's something in that.
Daughter when you were just dating.
Yeah.
It's a long title for that, but but you get understand. Now, my second, you remember I said one was already a date with my wife, Audrey. We were married, and it was a date that happened. Now, there was another one when I was a single man, and I had an unusual date that still is kind of a mystery to me to this day. It was the most unusual premise for a date that I've ever had in my entire life. For a couple of summers during college, my summer job was I was one of those telemarketers. I was one of those people that when you used to have phones in your home, that kind of thing. And
you'd talk to us at,
right, dinner time usually, and interrupt your dinner.
You were good at that.
I was that guy. And so that was an unusual job for a couple of years. But we would have these lists, how we would get, it wasn't just a phone book. It was a list and would have the person's name and the phone number and the address. And so I called and talked to a very nice lady for a while. Again, I'm in my early 20s, and this was the mother of the house, and I talked to her, and she bought a couple we sold magazines through youth organizations. So she was very nice and sold a few magazines. I was on the phone with her for probably 10 minutes or so, and that was good. Hung up, wrote the order up, go to the next call, didn't pay attention to the address. I just saw the name, first name, and so I called. Well, it ends up, it was a separate number, same address. It was the daughter of the person.
Oh.
She had a phone upstairs in her room. And so I introduced myself, and she goes, "Did you just talk to my mom for a while?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we kind of laughed about it and kind of chatted. And so here we were just chatting away. Well, I'll fast forward. And by the end of the phone conversation, which was probably bad business for me because I knew I wasn't going to sell her any magazines, but she sounded fun on the phone. So I stayed on the phone for like 10 or 15 minutes and just talked to her. By the end of the phone, we had set up a dinner date.
What?
Talk about a blind date.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you already talked to her mom.
I did talk to her mom.
So there's that.
She seemed like a nice person, I guess. So here's the thing. We met for the date. We lived in two separate towns, probably a half hour away, but we met at a place in the middle. Met for dinner, of course, and are you that person I thought, anyway, so we met for dinner, had a great time at dinner, great conversation. And at the end of the dinner, she drove home and I drove home. It was the last I've ever seen her or talked to her.
Well, that was that.
That was that.
It was just short but sweet.
Sure. Isn't that mysterious? And
it's so mysterious.
Because when I look back on it, I'm like, well, why didn't I call her again? Or why? I mean, we seemed to have a good time, I guess. And
wow.
So I didn't call her back.
Wild. Maybe she'll hear this podcast.
Maybe so. It was a mysterious,
the search
very mysterious date. But at least, as you heard earlier, at least I didn't have a sport coat get,
well, and you didn't get stuck in a blizzard or anything like that.
No.
And I want to just real briefly go back to what I said about my buddy's date too, because he had a terrible date. But what's funny about that is that he and I are both now married to the then girlfriends that we took on our then first Valentine's dates.
Huh.
And it's funny because John and I, my friend, we reflect probably most years because we talk a lot still about every year. Hey, remember the worst Valentine's dates ever? And we love to remember how bad they were because we know that things turned out better than we thought they would. Because now both of us look back on saying, we have a family. We love this person. We're together with this person. Those things, those expectations, those problems we thought they were at the time, removed. Now that you look at the big history of it, maybe even Steve the Romans 8:28 perspective, how all things work together for good, might not, you look at, really, no, you do look at the big picture and you say, okay, there are times where birds mess on the sport jacket. There are times where dates don't go anything like what we expected. But in the long run, and we're even thinking now about the longest run of eternity, we can say all things work together for the good of those who love God. And that's the perspective, looking at all things working together for God's glory. If a messed up Valentine's Day can get my mind to like be able to focus on that internal perspective, really it's all worth it.
Starting your day with fun and encouragement. This is Rise Up on Family Life.
We're looking for free entertainment when the kids are like, before school age, and you're looking to spend a few hours doing things.
So we just did one last night, my daughter and I. One of our lobster date. Now, we don't split a steamed lobster tail. It's when we go to the grocery store, we look at the lobsters in the tank.
I remember that as a kid. That is fun. Yeah. Good morning. Who's this?
It's Tim. I'm in Marathon.
Does this bring up memories, or do you currently have youngsters?
I have 3 boys.
What do you do for free entertainment?
So, Tractor Supply, they have like the chicks and the ducks.
Yes.
They can do Tractor Supply, and they can get the chicks and ducks and let them peep at them.
Yes. My nieces and nephew love that. And we haven't done that yet in our family. But the cousins love it. We're going to have to try that out.
This is something fun to do, and they get to see baby chicks and ducks.
Hi, good morning. This is Jonathan from Athens. I do have 3 boys at home, and we would go to the mall and ride the escalator. We would do that for some time.
That is fabulous.
That's great.
That is so
Like
good.
a little amusement park,
It goes up. And watch this, kids. It goes down.
Reminding you that God is in charge today and every day. It's Rise Up with Steve and Tim on Family Life.
I don't typically pay the slightest attention to things like this, like who's winning these music awards and such, but it caught my eye when I saw this one from the Barbie movie, got a Grammy. And we're not talking about the song of the movie really per se here, but it's kind of more about us as people in a society. The song's called What Was I Made For? And it gets Song of the Year. Now you got to think like, wow, what's that saying about us? That question, like you think in our current confused age, we're all looking for meaning. And a song called What Was I Made For? We're all agreeing saying that's the song of the year. Makes you just think, the modern world, it's a heavy place. Folks feel like picking a song that they relate to that says basically feel like a toy, like a made thing, wondering if we're important. What's really real? Why are we even here? And those are good questions. Those are really good questions. Before you know why you're here, I think we've got to look around and say, yeah, there's got to be more than this.
Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. It's Rise Up with Steve and Tim on Family Life.
Congratulations. Congratulations to you who have maybe you just made this decision, maybe yesterday or maybe just recently, to follow Jesus.
Wow.
For the first time.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You're wondering, what's that path look like? What's that path ahead of me look like? And I think I can speak for many of us who have followed Jesus for years. I think as you approach day by day, moment by moment, that decision to follow Jesus, it's the smartest, scariest, most thrilling, and fulfilling path you'll ever follow.
Coffee? Check. Music? Check. Fun and encouragement? Check and check. It's Rise Up with Steve and Tim on Family Life.
So I think it's probably safe to say that Jesus liked figs. They were a popular fruit at his time. Okay. There's this kind of shocking story in the Bible, actually, where Jesus curses a fig tree.
Oh, boy.
Because it didn't have any fruit on it. It was like a metaphor. But still, the figs would have been a big treat in his time. Now, I was looking at a package of fig bars in my house the other day, in my cupboard. This wouldn't be news other than the fact that, they're fine snacks. Mm-hmm. The expiration date on it, though, says April 2024 AD. Well, yeah. Didn't really occur to me. Any of the snacks in my cupboard would have been from the BC times before Christ. Well, I wasn't thinking these were like the figs from the Bible story here in my cupboard.
May the blessings of the Lord be with you in all that you do today. This is Rise Up on Family Life.